Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How are we? Welcome along. It's another inspirational conversation. Andy Ward presents. We are multi-streaming live to Facebook on this wonderful vertical stream and also on YouTube on our full high definition. Welcome. Monday afternoon. Today, I am going live and direct to my guest, Mr. Jonny Lee, one of the main gentlemen behind an incredible organization. Last night, a DJ saved my life, or LNADJ, as we will lovingly refer to it throughout the course of this conversation. We are throwing forward and highlighting World Water Day, which is coming up in the not too distant future. Let me say hi and good afternoon to Mr. Jonny Lee. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, Andy, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to share some more awareness around Last Night a DJ Saved My Life.
It's my pleasure. We are both sporting the amazing garms. I want to say thank you to the crew for sending me this.
Full merchandise. You've got a t-shirt, I've got a sweatshirt, you know.
We'll make sure that we give it a really good plug a little bit later on of all the wonderful garms and merch that people can get their hands on.
Yeah.
As always, we like to make this as interactive as we can. So anybody watching live, feel free to ask any questions or leave any comments. And when there's a break in the conversation, I will address them. The purpose of today's conversation is to throw forward to World Water Day, which is on Friday, the 22nd of March. We are going to find out what that actually means to you. But before we get there, I think we should shed a huge light on Last Night a DJ Saved My Life, your involvement with it and how it came about. That's something that we can easily do in this conversation, right?
Absolutely, Andy. Yeah. If you've got a few days.
Good. Well, I have been told that you do like a chat, but so do I. So that suits me down to the ground. But we'll get the crux of the information down. I think it is important to find out before we look into the organisation to find out more about one of the gentlemen behind it. So do you feel comfortable being in the spotlight? Do you want to talk about yourself for a little bit?
Yeah, that's fine, Andy. Yeah. Well, going right back, I was brought up in the Peak District in Derbyshire, and then in my sort of teenage years, I was here in Ibiza a lot. I mean, I've been visiting Ibiza, which is where I've lived for the past 25 years, full time, and I visited it from an early age, being a kid.
Let me just say there, and I'll stop myself from interrupting, but I wanted to interject here because you put a great post up yesterday, sharing love with your mum, saying about how she introduced you to Ibiza 30 odd years ago, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, she was living here for 30 years, so that was 30 odd years ago. But I first came here in 1971.
Okay, wow.
Which is however long ago, it's 53 years ago. And then my dad bought an apartment here in 74. Wow. And from that moment, we were here like every summer for, at least, over the period of a year, at least 6 weeks a year. So by the time I got to being a teenager, let's say by the time I got to 16, I could go away on my own. I've got a brother who's 5 years older than me, who's an amazing musician. And he came here to work the season.
Okay.
So I came here with Chris, and whilst he was working the season, I was just working the streets and flyering and doing all that mischief, in that sort of 1986, 87 period. And, was there at the epicenter of the explosion of what actually happened over here, which then got obviously taken back to the UK with the likes of Danny Ramplins and Oakenfolds and all that kind of thing. It was that sort of transition from the sort of Balearic explosion to global explosion. But it felt like I was in a real important starting point for it.
Okay. And were you, when you say you were at the epicenter, were you rubbing shoulders with a lot of those heads at the time?
Funny enough, I didn't know the likes of Danny and Paul Oakenfold and Trevor Fung and all that. But some of it, Danny's been a trustee of this charity, and Trevor Fung's been an ambassador for right from the off. But I've got to know them later, probably more like 1990, something like that, from all sorts of different shenanigans. But I frequented places like Trevor started the first sort of cool bar in San Antonio, Project Bar, and that's where a lot of it sort of started in that 1986-87 period. But I was in that community within that period when we were going to Amnesia, and it was a very special time. And I'd say that sort of late 80s period in Ibiza anyway was special because they didn't have roofs on the clubs, which just, dancing under the stars, whilst participating in all the other things was just an incredible experience. And and then because I was working the seasons, I was getting the full dose of it. And then coming back I was actually in my later teens in Sheffield. And Sheffield was lively on the clubbing side of it. There was a club called Occasions, and Winston Hazel and Parrot DJing there. Forge Masters they were part of, and Warp Records was kicking on. So and then you've got Nightmares on Wax, who was just down the way in Leeds, and some interesting music coming out of that sort of northern quarter, let's say.
Well, I had an incredible conversation. Sorry for talking over you. There will be a tiny delay. I had an incredible conversation with Winston and Edsy as well from Unique 3. So we covered about all of those magnificent times.
No, it was special. I mean, it was it was very much an urban version of what I'd experienced in Ibiza, but what you noticed, I think, back then was, this letting go of this aggression and people showing aggression to each other. In my early clubbing days in the mid 80s, if you were to go over to Leeds or to Nottingham, you were on your lookout that you're going to get clumped because you were from another city. It was as simple as that, and you were almost somehow coming in to steal their women or something. Yeah, it was very tribal. It was very tribal.
You took the words out of my mouth. Very tribal, very territorial. Completely.
It really, really was. I mean, and then you got even in Sheffield. Go from one district to another district, and people would be fighting each other. It was just a really nuts time. And whilst I'd been brought up around music, my father was a musician, my brother's a musician. I'd always been around music. I got into the sort of hip hop, breakdancing side of things. I loved the electronica and electro, so I was getting into that. And so when that sort of broke into the clubbing side of it, but more on the acid house thing, and I didn't have to wear these stupid suits and wear shoes and get knocked back when you got to the front because you weren't wearing the right tie and all that ridiculous stuff that was going on in the 80s. It was just like the level of freedom, and everybody was feeling the same because you were like, all of a sudden it didn't matter what you wore or who you were talking to. And and clearly the sort of chemical induced scenario went to another level. And it all just blew me away, that side of it. And the Hacienda, we were in the Hacienda a lot, and we were in Shelley's, and more based around the northern side of things. But then, because I was going to Ibiza for the seasons, I was always meeting people from London and all over the country, basically. And that was my early days into the party thing. And as a consequence of that, I started putting on a few parties as well in Sheffield. Just the odd one-offs. It was clearly my sort of thing. In the early 90s, I then started a clothing brand called Pleasure Force. Funny enough, doing T-shirts with it was sort of drug connotations, corporate brands, but twisting them around, and so instead of a less sport, it'd be LSD, and we had express dairies, but it'd say express yourself with a big E in the middle, and the feeler E. It was like the big feeler F, but we turned it into an E, and it had this big E, and it said energy. And you know, and I ended up selling them around 60 shops quite quickly, and yeah, that was quite an exciting period of time in the early 90s. So, you know, I was always around that community, and I didn't want to be around any other community. It was like, and whatever I did to survive in that community, be a part of the party, that was my mission. And it sort of remained my mission for a long time. Fast forward to the early 90s, I then got introduced to DIY and the free party sound system. That took the roof off my head, because I thought that freedom to party like I was feeling in Ibiza in the early days without the roofs, that kind of feeling I'd not sort of bumped into in the UK, because it was more from a clubbing perspective. So you're in four walls. I've not done the free party thing. So when the next minute I'm dancing in fields for like 2 days at an illegal party, and then all the characters that you met there, I mean, that I just thought, this is wild. This is it coming back round. This is the second rebirth of it. And it's on the underground, and it's where I want to be. And the music that was coming out of DIY at that time, the deep house thing that they jumped on, was phenomenal. And DK, one of their DJs, was just, yeah, it was an amazing time, and the community around it were brilliant. The traveling community, it was an interesting sort of city clubbers meet travelers, but it sort of worked, or it certainly, from the sort of DIY perspective, it was, because it was around the house music and the deep house, it was quite fluffy, really. And there was a lot of very decent MDMA, shall I say, coming out coming from San Francisco, because the travelers always had the best stuff. And that just made, it was just like this fluffy community of people just being really nice with each other. It wasn't aggressive. So I got down with that. And then I found myself in Thailand, in Koh Phangan. I'd gone there in 1990 first off, just on it was my first Asian traveling experience for a couple of months. And I ended up in Koh Phangan, bit similar to the beach, really, because I'd met somebody in Ibiza after a party, and she was telling this story to a group of people about this beach, and they'd found this beach, and you walk through the sea and it all sparkled, and it just sounded like this magical land. And I was like, where's that? And she says, oh, literally, I'll draw you a map where it is. And before the internet, so it's not like you could just go into Google and go, oh, right, yeah, I know, I'll just press Google. So I it was a mission. When we got to Thailand, where we were going to this little magical island. Ended up there, brilliant, and then found myself 2 years later, when I'm sort of involved with DIY, because I became really close friends with them. And I'd got there on the Boxing Day. I'd only been there 24 hours or something like that. I think we had some mushrooms or something like you do in those places. And then I found a venue that was on the beach in Hadrin. And I was with another couple of friends from Ibiza, and we just said, let's do a party here. Let's just do one. We'll do a DIY party. So, and at that time there, you ain't got decks or anything. You just got tape machines. So I'd got these DIY tapes with me, and we put on this party. Well, it absolutely went off. It proper went off. So we ended up doing a deal with the Thai owner, and we secured this club space, and we call it the Vinyl Cafe. And that was it. That was me in Asia. So then I exported a sound system from the UK. I got some of the DIY to come over. I didn't get the main crew, because they, at the same time, they just hit San Francisco, and it all was kicking off in San Francisco for them. So I got the sort of the DJ's a bit not as prominent, but it was all, yeah, we were all on the same vibe and the same music, and yeah, it was a wild time, and I did that
Incredible.
for 2.5 years.
Well, I'm sat here allowing you to just finish that story, but it's quite strange because as much as we've spoken, I've never really dug this deep with you. And I was there every step of the way with you, clearly not in Thailand, but I had very good friends of mine living in the house with them in San Francisco. Also used to go to a lot of the DIY parties, Castle Morton, as it progressed and so
Yeah,
on and so forth.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Snap! I was at Castle
amazing.
Morton for 8 days. I went down in the truck with them and all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
because I could see that was another reason to get out of England, because I could see that was being broken up, especially after Castle Morton. Criminal justice bill, all that, a lot of anger coming in the scene, and it just wasn't going to work for me. So I was like, right, I'm out of here. I'm doing the Asia thing, and
mhm.
hence why I'd found myself living in Copenhagen and just having a wild time. I mean, it was a shame that some of the key players in it didn't make it over because of the San Fran. Because later on in life, way after I'd left the place, a couple of main guys went there and went, "Oh, mate, it's amazing here." And I was like, "I told you."
Yeah.
Only look, you've arrived a bit late. We literally had it in the palm of our hands. And I was putting on parties in Hong Kong, so doing stuff over there. I was working with the guy from the Zoot Club in Singapore, and he was giving me a bit of help. And I was just being the acid house missionary, just taking that sound, but I was taking the house sound really over to Asia rather than the Goa techno thing, because the other people who were putting on the free parties over in Asia, it was all the Goa techno tribe.
Or the full moon
Which,
parties, the full emphasis on the full moon kind of vibe.
yeah, the full moon tend to be around the full on Goa techno, which it's got its place. It's all right,
Mhm.
but it wasn't my thing. Because I've just come up from the house music thing, and I've come up in the Balearic scene, and I'm okay with some lovely lyrics. I'm fine with that. I don't just have to have raw electronica.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I did that for 2.5 years, something like that. It all ended in tears, and yeah, I won't go too deep into that, but yeah, I got set up, and it ended up, yeah, just turning into a bit of a dark nightmare for a
Okay.
short period. So yeah, I had to literally sort of escape Thailand, and that was the end of that dream. Um, Moved on to India, started going to India instead. Was into pirate radio for a while, so I had a sort of mobile traveling radio station, autonomous zone it's called. took took the radio station into India, up into the Himalayas, into Manali. Incredible region, right into the thick of the Himalayas. It's where the best charas actually came from. So there was a traveling fraternity up there who liked to smoke
Mhm.
and liked to party as well. There was a party thing going on in Manali that would also it'd be up in Manali in the summer, and then it'd export itself to Goa in the winter. So I was following the global party tribe, really, of travelers, and it was exciting, and I did that. I did 2 stints of that for 5 months, playing funk, soul, the lot to the Himalayan communities, um,
Fascinating.
which was nuts. Came back to Ibiza, a little bit of time in England, and then in '99 decided to move to Ibiza with my partner, uh, solely because it felt the best place to start a family. I thought we wanted to start a family, and Ibiza came the thing. So I came over here. Um, Obviously, the party thing's still going full pelt, and I was, oh yeah, I guess I was still pretty good at it at that point. Um, had my children, my 2 children, and then yeah, whilst partying, turned a corner. Let's say in about 2007, couple of things happened. I was introduced to plant medicine, which was a ridiculously powerful experience for me, and rewired a lot of things that were going on. As part of that rewiring, my empathy for other people on this planet went through the roof. And funnily enough, at the same time, somebody had put me up for the Great North Run. So I started training for that. And I'd never been a runner, but I decided to take on board this challenge of a marathon or a half marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And
I was going to say, it's on the side note, there are a couple of different lengths, aren't there, of the Great North Run? Different challenges: 10K, half K, and full marathon. Is there 10K, half marathon?
I don't think there's the full marathon. I can imagine there being a 10K.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at that time, it's the world's biggest half marathon, and there was 52,000 people in that marathon. Which I'd never done anything like that, Andy. I'd never done any fundraising events. I'd never really done anything for charity. I mean, of course, I've popped a tenner in a pot and things like that, but I'd just not engaged in the sort of charity world. And I signed up, and I did that for cancer research or something like that, because I lost my father at 50. He was 53, so I lost him quite young. And it was my first time doing something for charity. I thought I'd do it for my father. That cause came in, and I thought, right, yeah, I'll do it for that. I wanted the spirit of my dad running with me, kind of thing, you know. Anyway, I did that with 52,000 others. And whilst I was in the run, I was looking at the backs of people's shirts. And in a lot of cases, it's saying what they're running for. It might have a photograph of a baby in an incubator, or all sorts of different things. And I found it really emotive whilst I was running, because you obviously do your running. So when you get into that, you're in an elevated space. And so I'm becoming aware. And what I was becoming aware of was the amount of love, collective love, that was around me. Because it's the first time I've been in a scenario where, not that we're just on the dance floor and we're feeling that collective love, and wow, this is an amazing feeling. We're all as one. This is beyond that, because this is, whilst we're all feeling at one, why are we feeling at one? Because we're all doing something to help somebody else. Mm-hmm. And we're actually doing something. We're not talking about it. We're not waffling. We're not on some drug conversation that's going nowhere. This is real people actually making a difference and putting themselves through a real physical challenge to do it. People of all shapes, sizes, all that, you know. And so by the time I got to the finishing line, which, if I remember rightly, I did it really quick. It was something like 1 hour 31 or something.
Wow. That is fast.
I came about 1,100 out of 56,000. And I wasn't even going my fastest, because I'd never run that distance. So I didn't want to run out of steam. And I was so elevated after it, tears and everything. And I thought, right, do you know what? I'm going to get back to Ibiza. I'm going to do a post-marathon party. I'm going to get in touch with DJs, I'm going to raise more funds. Exactly what I did. I got back. Within a week, I organised a big gig at a mate's venue, got DJs there. My brother's connected with all the musicians, so I had loads of musicians there, and I put on this fundraising gig.
Well, let me say at this point, clearly from the stories that you've told us, you are an extremely sociable person. So you're fully immersed within the whole music scene. You're quite connected now, I would think, from traveling around the world and the people you get to know, and especially being in Ibiza, you would be rubbing shoulders with a lot of the big boys, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. Over the years, met loads of them, and hence, like Danny Rampling, he came and DJ'd at our club in Thailand. and then Lee Burridge, I think, played it at some gig that we did in Hong Kong that was connected to DIY, and Lee was over there. And I just keep meeting all these different people. And I see Brandon Block and Alex P over here all the time in the early days. And you just got to see people. And
so sorry, I took you off track. So you put on the post-marathon party.
I put on the post-marathon party. I organised it in a week, sort of on my own, but just a few phone calls. Will you do this? Yeah, come down. I'll do it for nothing. And all of a sudden, I got this really positive response of people wanting to do it for nothing, to help out for what I was raising funds for. No questions asked, and it felt so good, opposed to some of the latter end of parties that I was putting on in the UK in the mid-90s. So after the Criminal Justice Bill, that kind of time where it was a bit darker, and it was just full of gangsters and everybody was trying to rip you off. I mean, and we did get ripped off at some point with the security turning on us and somebody getting his life threatened, and it went really heavy, and I stepped away from promoting because I didn't like what was going on. But then this was like 15 years later, I've got this collective of people all coming together for love and to help others, and it felt so right. And on the actual gig, it was brilliant. Clearly there's a good vibe in the air. Raised about another 1,500 quid, so doubled my fundraising, let's say. And that was it. That was the seed sown for, maybe I should get back into doing gigs, but maybe I should do it with a sort of charity angle. So, and we're talking, what's this? It's probably 2009 now. 2008, yeah. And then in 2009, I started a production company, what I called Follow Your Heart Productions. And we started working with there's an organisation called Green Heart over here, and it's a sort of eco tribe. They got a really nice community. They were hosting events every Sunday, and people would get together and talk about it. It was a real conscious community, and we'd organise beach cleans and things like that in Ibiza. And so I sort of linked to them and started doing fundraising events around that kind of community, working with some of the local councils to get permissions to put on these gigs and community runs. I even did a community run called Earth Run that was part of a collective run that was happening all around the world at the same time. So there was different people representing Earth Run in different countries all on the same day, and I think it was Earth Day.
Okay. Yeah.
Whenever that is April, it might be April, something like that. Anyway, it was a Global Earth Day. So I was doing all those things, and then at the same time, I was sort of starting to question around me, because I'm in the middle of the Ibiza clubbing thing at the time, and not too dissimilar to now. The tickets, the prices of tickets were expensive, the drinks are expensive and all that. I'm thinking, this is just a money-making machine now. And I'd go to the IMS, the International Music Summit, and they'd be almost boasting that electronic music's now this $7 billion industry. And whilst I'm sort of like, wow, that's amazing that it's spread over the world, I'm like, but what is it doing? Has it lost its way? Because we weren't even talking about how many dollars were being made, and you could see the change happening in the late 80s, because racism was dropping down. Everything, all sorts of things it was social change. You didn't need a charity bucket, because the music and the community were creating social change just naturally.
I've never heard anyone put it like that, but that's bang on the nose, right?
Yeah. It's just It's a massive, huge change. I mean, and even if, and those people, it all filtered out, doesn't it? Some of those people are in the TV industry, some are in the film industry. It was that DIY culture where you were setting up clothing labels and all these kind of things. And it was really exciting because you were changing the format of how things were done. But, fast forward 15 years and it was just going into this. Oh, we know how to make money from this, and let's just do this. And unfortunately, Beether was at the absolute epicenter of that. So I started looking into how much my cat, by the way, how much charity work was being done in the electronic music industry, and I was shocked that I couldn't actually find very much online. There wasn't that much evidence of stuff. And I thought, well, I can't believe that. It's a $7 billion industry. And there's no evidence to suggest the industry is doing anything to support charities. So I was like, that kind of burst my bubble, because I've been such an advocate, a missionary for this whole scene and electronic music, and that it was going to, well, it was changing the world, and it had changed, and it was going to keep changing. And then all of a sudden it's just hit me, oh my God, we're just a load of hedonists who are just selfishly thinking about ourselves and just having a laugh and having a good time and not actually thinking outside of the box. And it really shook me up, but to a point where I thought, you know what? I know enough people around me. That can't be right. Something's got to change. And right now, I think we could lead by example, and we could be part of that change. We could start that process. How do you start a charity? Well, I've not got a clue. I don't know. You just start, don't you? You start with a mission and you head that way. So that's literally that was the mindset. And I immediately started. I think the first people I approached was Danny Rampling, because Danny had been close with me. Also, because Danny's involvement in the birth of Acid House from a British perspective, I knew he knew about the whole social change story, and he very passionate about this community and that we should be making a difference. So Danny joined on board. I'd got Alfredo from the early days in Amnesia. I got him on board. I got Nancy Noyes on board, who was a friend as well. And just started to get together a few people from that sort of pioneering period, let's say, who would understand, like you're understanding now, of what the difference was from why we were partying and what we were doing in the late 80s as to what it had turned into. Yeah. And maybe we need to have a reset, and we need to start adding this sort of bit more of a social conscience to the scene and start making a difference. And whilst it's an event-based industry, that can't be too hard to put into place. If you're putting 10p on a ticket or guest list or whatever it is, it's most charities have to put on events to raise funds. But here's an industry that's what they do. They put on events. It potentially was made for the job. And yeah, we set off, and that was 2010. So 2010 is when Last Night a DJ was born. There was a funny moment in a good friend of mine at the time had moved to Ibiza. So Nathan Coles, bless his soul. Yeah. So Nathan, I was at a barbecue with Nathan, who was a very funny man, and he filled me with laughter that night. We were laughing our heads off, and I think that's right. I think we had a little go on some acid or something like that.
I've never heard it put so eloquently. We had a little go on some acid.
Yeah, well, I say a little go because a little cheeky quarter or something like that, but just enough so that his giggles anyway, because he just has you in hysterics, took me to the next level of hysterics. And when I woke up that next morning, the Last Night a DJ Saved My Life came in my head, and I was thinking about a name for the charity, and that song came in my head, and I was last night, and I said, no way. I said that could be the name of a charity. And I saw Nathan and I said it to Nathan, and he was like, yeah, that's perfect. So I was straight on the phone or whatever to Danny, and Danny, what do you think? I've just thought of this name for the charity. He was like, well, yeah, it works. And that was the birth of the name. So, when you've got a name, it feels like you've landed a project, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the next moment is going and seeing the website address. Is the website address available? Yes, it is. Great, brilliant. And then it was organising a launch party in London, 2000, and I did that on World Environmental Day, June the 5th, 2010.
Right. So,
and yeah.
Go on. Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. What I was going to ask you was, there's so many elements that would have got you to this point, from this point onwards, that we would love to dissect. But I'm curious and keen to find out where your focus immediately went to when thinking about who to help and how to help them. Was that just immediately apparent to you, or were there another chain of events that would make you decide who you were going to support and how?
Well, strangely, it's when we start, because I'd been working with the environmental thing before Last Night a DJ. That was part. We were still doing sort of Ibiza beach cleans and things like that, so I wasn't opposed to that side of things. But when we registered for the charity in 2011, and it's quite a big application process, and within that application, you've got to be very precise about what you're raising funds for, what are you doing this for, kind of thing. And you've got to not literally name the charities, but is it social, humanitarian, aid, And I remember at the time just thinking, well, if we're working with the global dance music community, who am I to say what they should be raising funds for? Let's just leave it open-ended, because some guy might want to do it for a cancer charity because he's just lost his parent or something like that. So I don't want to stop him doing a fundraising event for cancer. I just want him to be inspiring other people to do fundraising events. So just join on board with Last Night a DJ. We're here to help lead by example and raise that awareness for other people. So we somehow managed to put in that application pretty much something that covered everything. So we didn't have a specific fundraising goal. Now, right from the off, that at times did pose a bit of a problem, because people had, well, what do you do? And it was the answer ended up just expanding too much. It was like
a little bit too ambiguous.
Yeah, exactly. I'd lose people. Yeah, well, we're doing these beach cleans over there, and we're building these wells over there, and we're helping these kids over there, and and it's just like, and everybody like, wow. But then if somebody else asked them, what do they do? I don't know, something to do with charity. They do quite a lot, but I don't actually know what they do. You'd have to ask them themselves, that kind of thing. So clearly that's not great when you want people to know what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was probably 2 years down the line that we realized just naturally the things we'd ended up supporting the most were causes that supported children and young people. So we made a decision collectively with the board and said, let's just stick with that for the moment. Young people, children, young people. So causes that support that.
You
With the
mentioned
odd
about the board. Do you want to give any insight into the people who helped you along at the beginning of the journey?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the board has changed along the way. As I say, Danny Rampling was one of the first people to join that board of trustees. There was another guy based here in Ibiza, John Beach, who he'd been a DJ, John LaPlage, and he'd also been in events and things like that. He was quite a player, John. He knew a lot of people, and he was a great guy. So John joined. I got introduced to another business guy who DJ'd. So the thing is, there's always a thread that the people who were joining the board would have some passion for electronic music. So, you know, they've at some point DJ'd or partied or something like that. You know, now whether they're now into recruitment or an architect or whatever, it didn't matter. It was just the common thread that united us all was the dance music, and that has been a thread that's run through Last Night a DJ with, I'd say, yeah, I'd go as far as to say all the people that have worked with us, whether they've volunteered, whether it's been paid work. You know, there's just this thread because we believe in that community and we believe in the music and we believe what difference it can make. Beautiful. You know, it's just rejigging, replacing that energy, collecting that energy that this scene has got, and just guiding it into, you know, into it being effective. Let's say funneling it.
I get you. I took you off your timeline. Forgive me. Can you recap where we were?
Yeah, well, we did the launch party, 2010. We actually call it the acid house effect, which was sort of a play on the greenhouse effect.
Okay.
And it was on World Environmental Day. We did a weekender party. So we did it in London. We did it at Corsica Studios for the Saturday night, which was a whole bill of acid house pioneers. Don't ask me the names because it was a long list, but yeah, you know, they were all on there, from Danny's and Trevor from.
Have you got me? Okay. Can you hear me, or is it gone weird? Because this happened the other day. Okay, I'll tell you what we need to do. Close your Zoom and then come back in again on that link. And while you're doing that, I'll change to this, because this actually happened to me the other day. And it's either Jonny's Zoom that's playing or it's my computer. So hopefully it will be okay now. We just got to make sure I am back live on Facebook. Let me know if this is okay. How does that sound now? Can you hear me okay?
Right, how's that?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
That's perfect, Andy. Yeah.
Okay. Now, people are saying that the sound has gone on Facebook for some reason, but I'm not sure why that is. We won't worry about that. Let's just carry on with our conversation because at least we've got the interview continuing, and so people can
Yeah.
always catch up on this at another time. Are you okay with
Yeah.
that? Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
fantastic.
It
Okay,
was a
so we
nice
had
little.
the acid house experience, the all day party in London, the weekend party
Yeah, the acid house effect. All the
effect.
acid house pioneers were there. Um, there's a very quirky scenario. So, when you'll probably know it being entrepreneurial. So when you're setting something up, so I ought to set the context of setting this thing up. And whilst I'm setting up a charity, right? Um, I'd got no particular finance behind me to start a charity. I realized that in order to do the launch party, as much as you've got people doing things for free, it's still these charity events, they're not for free. They still cost money. There's
Mm-hmm.
still elements of things that you have to pay for. So I borrowed 10,000 quid off a friend, which 10,000 quid back then, right at me, was a fair amount. And I was also choosing to focus solely, my work was just going to be Last Night at DJ because I wanted to give it the full attention. And I felt in order for me to attract philanthropists, stroke investors, let's say, to get behind it, they're going to want to see somebody at the helm who's fully committed.
Mm-hmm.
So I put any other work aside and fully committed to this mission, which was a scary position to go in because I got 2 kids at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a mortgage in Ibiza. But there was something telling me to believe in this. It's going to work. It's going to work. It's going to work. And you're always looking for a sign, for something to give you that little tap on the shoulder of here's a little miracle or something. And I was stood outside the light bar, which is where we had the second part of the Acid House Weekender, was on a Sunday, and we did this Balearic all dayer with the likes of Phil Myson and Bill Brewster and Ross Allen and all these characters. It was brilliant. Whilst we were setting that up, all right, this was on the Friday, so this was before the weekender. Whilst we were setting up, a double-decker bus, a big red bus, came past me, and on the side of it, like a bit on the advertising, it said, "Last Night a DJ saved my life," on the side of it, right? I just saw this thing, and I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "What's that?" And it was an advert for police. The police, can you believe it? The police, and they were recruiting young policemen.
Right.
And they'd called this campaign, they'd used "Last Night a DJ Saved My Life." Well, that weekend, it hit London, and it was on billboards all over London and on the underground. So I've got people phoning me up saying, "Oh, you're pushing out on the advertising on it, aren't you? I've seen it all over."
Brilliant.
I was like, well, me and my friend, Steve Propson, we were just like, that's a sign. Surely that has got to be a sign that this thing has got to go down. And it was a very rewarding moment. It was a confirmation from up above that I needed right at that point, when you've put 10 grand of somebody else's money on the line. And yeah, we had a great launch event. Funnily enough, it didn't raise money, even though I got all these DJs. We didn't pack it out, even though, you got all these DJs who know loads of people. We just didn't pack it out. So I don't think it raised anything,
Right.
apart from it just covered its bills, which, to this day was probably a good thing, because we weren't promoters. And if you're running a charity, you're not a promoter, you're either a charity or a promoter. We've not got a fan base in that same way. So you can end up getting a lot of people involved in putting on events, donating their time. You can spend a lot of money putting them on, and you could lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
What's the point of that? So we soon learned that we weren't a charity that our main focus is to put on fundraising events. What it became is we choose people in the industry to work with who are very successful at already putting on events, and we'll bolt on the charity pot to what they're doing.
Very clever.
Therefore, we're not risking anything. It's not our fans that are coming through the door. It's like We Love at Space as a great example, because Darren, Mark and Sarah were the first big promoter to get behind us. And tax, I guess I don't like that word, get the guest list to donate, basically, €5. And it worked really successfully. We raised over 30,000 in 2012. I think it was the season of 2012 from the guest list. And, you know, bit by bit, 30,000, the difference that made. We chose about 8 different causes to support. We built one of our first freshwater wells in India. I always remember that moment, because the people who'd built the wells, the organisation we'd partnered with, Drop for Drop, who's a big water partner, and they go out and search, do the surveys of where to dig the wells. They contract in the people to build the wells. So we don't have to get involved in any of that. We're not well diggers. You know, what we are is a fundraising entity that can finance somebody to build a well. And so we're always calling on experts in their own field to do what they're good at, and we'll do what we're good at. Great combination. Because when we first got the photos through of the first wells, it really made me literally well up. All of a sudden, it's like you're seeing this community stood around a well, and whilst I'm at my computer in Ibiza and I see these photos, oh my God, we really have built a well. That's all the community. And in some cases, a little bit of video had come our way. So you've got interactions with kids in water and just like, wow. And I sent that evidence, let's say, back to the We Love office, and then they were all in tears. You know, but it's tears of joy, isn't it? You know, you're all of a sudden you're really moved and touched that we've really done something to change somebody's lives.
Well, we had a conversation a little while ago, and we were saying that the importance of this is you're not reaching out to people to make absolutely huge, to take huge steps to donate these millions of pounds. You're asking people to make small changes in a small way, and collectively they actually create something like this that you can see and say, yeah, I've had a part of that. And that is the beauty of what you do, I believe, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's you know, we're trying to collectively bring together that community. So if we're all doing a little bit, the little bits added together, it makes a huge difference, doesn't it? You know, it really does. But by you putting in your little bit and contributing, you're part of the bigger bit.
Yeah.
And by forming this platform, which Last Night a DJ at the time would see it as like this sort of fundraising platform in between the dance music industry and the charities and the causes themselves, which at the time weren't communicating with each other at all. You know, so we'd go and have conversations with people who are building wells, or with people like War Child, or all these different Nordoff Robbins, music therapy charity. We'd start having conversations saying, look, we're getting DJs involved, and you know, will you be okay to receive some funding? Yeah, great, brilliant. then we'd have the conversations with the likes of We Love and say, look, we're going to partner with this charity. We're going to dig a well. We're going to partner with this charity. We're going to do some music therapy, da 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 da, and it worked really well. So that the person who's good at putting on parties, they don't have to then start getting too involved in, well, how do I pick a cause and what does that look like? And I've heard lots of rumours about in the charity world of the money's not getting where it's meant to go, and the whole paranoia of it not really doing what it's supposed to do. And we wanted to sort of eliminate that paranoia, let's say, as well, by us becoming experts in our own field, because we've had time to research the certain causes, we've met the people, we've seen the difference they've made. We might have even done some work with them initially, which then backs up, these are great. They've provided us with images and everything we need. We can totally certify that this cause is good to go. Therefore, you as a promoter getting involved, it's got a green light. It saves you the headache of having to do that work.
That's amazing. That's one of the things that attracted me to it. And we will get back onto the timeline. But while you've been mentioning a lot about that, I wanted to ask you about the authenticity of the people you're working with, the transparency, which is extremely important, and some of the frustrations that you may have met along the way, or has it been plain sailing from start to finish?
It's been everything but plain sailing, as most entrepreneurial ideas are. It's just you've got to be resilient from the moment that you start, knowing that you're going to have to conquer loads of challenges along the way.
Well, you've got a big heart, and there's a lot of emotion attached to this. How have you not been? You must have given yourself a thick skin along the way, because you must have had knocks and challenges to what you're trying to achieve and the likes. You must have, right?
I think the biggest frustration from initially having the vision, because it was visionary at the time, and the way that it came to me was very visionary, and I saw it. I've seen it, so I've already seen this thing happening, and it's happening before it's happened. So when you've got that going, you sort of imagine, you're imagining it. It's of course people are just going to get on board, and you've got all these events in the industry, they're all going to say yes. Of course, they're all going to put 10p on a ticket globally, thousands of events. Before you know it, you're raising millions, and we're all changing God knows how many lives together. Easy as that. In my head, it seems quite easy. The challenge was working within the music industry, and unfortunately, I guess it's the egos. I don't quite know, but at times you were coming against blocks of why they wouldn't do it, or people promising to do it and then just not doing anything, and almost liking the idea to be involved in a charity making a difference. I'll be an ambassador. Put me down. Liking to share that, but not actually doing anything themselves, not donating any money, not putting on an event, not inspiring somebody else to. Just zero, and just hanging off your coattails as like, we're on this charity mission. Well, after a while, that started, when you've got a lot of people hanging on your tails there, that just started wearing a bit thin. And we could start seeing straight through it.
And how did that affect you personally? I guess it frustrated, really, that they couldn't see or understand the simplicity of what we're trying to get across. And the actual act of giving is going to be something that gives back to you, and you're going to become more wealthy, not necessarily financially, just wealthy in spirit, by being involved
in the act of giving. And whilst I could see it for myself, and I think I could equally say it for all the team, that, I mean, I'm talking team, so people who volunteered their hours, and most people who've worked with Last Night DJ have all started as volunteers and donated loads of hours for free before they've even ended up getting a little bit of something for their time. And all those people could see it, and they've got involved, and then other good things have happened around them, or it's been good for them to get involved and their children to see that they're involved in this. You know, it's a good education for your children to see that you actually, you know, you give monkeys about the world around you. So whilst I could see it was being effective, and myself, you know, certain amazing things coming into my life that was being given, and as a confirmation, it's the right thing to do, let's say. And just frustrating when you'd got certain pillars of the industry that are connected to potentially millions of fans and people. They're also earning a lot of money, and just that small act of actually doing something and getting involved could inspire so many people. And it's not the difference that they've made, it's the difference that collectively all these other people could make, having been inspired by this one person. Mm-hmm. You calculate that up, and it's phenomenal, isn't it? But to counteract that, and the thing that's kept my mojo up, let's say, and keeps those frustrating thoughts at bay, are the number of, and it might only be a few, but the few individuals who've taken the challenge on to be an ambassador or be involved in Last Night DJ, and then taken it to the next level. Mm-hmm. And I'll name drop here. So somebody like George, Nightmares on Wax. So George comes on board, who I know as a friend here in Ibiza, and George comes on board and says, I want to build a well. We'll do it with my party thing, Wax the Jam. And he does it. And then he says, we're going on tour with Nightmares on Wax. I'm going to get all my fans involved. And in the middle of his concert, with all his musicians, he stands up and he relays something about Last Night DJ and building freshwater wells. And some images come up on the screen behind him. And he says to his community, you know, and I'd like you to be a part of it. And, you know, if you could donate, it'd be well appreciated. I think we did a text to donate thing. Sure enough, his fans get involved. He builds more wells. He gets more involved. Then some of the fans who are in the audience are founders of companies like Matt Pelling, who owned Loop Masters and now Loop Cloud and Plugin Boutique. Well, Matt saw George relay this thing on stage. He then got in touch with me and said, look, I own Plugin Boutique and Loop Masters. We saw what George was saying. We really want to get involved. How do we get involved? That was in November. I think by the new year, he'd already launched a Christmas sale for his products online and donated something like 5% of the profits from that sale, which translated into something like £8,000, just like that, you know. And then went again in the summer sale, another 10, and then again 16, and you know. And to date, Matt's built God knows how many wells. His companies have inspired Isotope, who are a massive company, bigger than them, and they got involved and threw in $25,000, and it goes on and on and on. Uh-huh. And that started from George being vocal on a stage, doing what he does. Uh-huh. You know, and then I get in touch with him. Will you climb Kilimanjaro? We want to break the record for the world's highest DJ set. Yeah, I'm up for that. Let's go. And I've had some incredible times with George, and why he makes music and his whole attitude of the industry and everything. I've just got absolute admiration for a human being like that in the music industry to recalibrate what music's about and what it's really capable of, and moving people.
That's to hear the passion and to hear the way that you relay that to me as well. It's clearly touched you, and the possibilities are there. As you say, they're endless. And you said it so much better than I could, that the act of simply giving for the sake of giving will come back to you so much stronger than you could ever imagine if you just commit to doing it, right?
Yeah, well, it's practicing self-love, isn't it? Because if you're giving out, there's a love that you're feeling of yourself as you're giving something. You don't feel bad about giving, so you don't normally feel bad about giving something. There's a heart in it. So you're sort of giving out the love, and then the love's coming back because you're increasing your own self-love. And as we all know, if you've got self-love, that's the real essence of the love anyway. That is what we're all searching for.
Yeah, it is a bit of an idealistic viewpoint, but that is definitely what's going to save mankind. Everyone having that same kind of mentality eventually.
Yeah, and I think this, there's certain religions, isn't there, that have it built into the religions that they donate X a percentage of their wages and things. Just they take time out. The Sikhs are always cooking for people and giving away food. It's part of their religion because it's an act of kindness, it's an act of goodness, and it leads to good things. And Last Night a DJ wanted to be there to inspire that kind of role for us all while we're in this electronic music industry, be it somebody on a dance floor or be it the person who's making people dance, playing the music. We could all play a role, however big or small, in changing people's lives.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, I could sit and listen to your passion for hours, but I think we should focus on the more recent activities that you've been involved with. You mentioned about climbing Kilimanjaro. You're also going to, and while we've been talking, I know Ellie's been frantically messaging saying you've died on Facebook. Well, we're still live on YouTube. I'm still recording this, so we've lost nothing. I didn't want to interrupt you and recalibrate and start again, so we continue.
You do it as a premier, can't you, on there? You can share it afterwards.
That's it. We should focus on exactly where you're at now, what you take most pride in. I mean, I know everything, and also we'll bring it right back around again to World Water Day. So have a drink on us, the campaign, and the building of 100 wells. You're looking to complete that in 2024. That is going to be realised, do you believe?
Yeah, I've no doubt. I've absolutely no doubt. I mean, we've got a few days to go, and I'm still sending out the emails to inspire some of the previous well builders to get involved and build another one. We've got a few artists we're sort of getting in touch with because it'd be nice to have the 100th well built by an artist within the industry.
Okay.
Because we've got lots of other people are building these wells. We've got people from recruitment industry and things like that. It's not all dance music related. I mean, they all interact with us, but it'd be nice for that 100th well to be somebody quite
symbolic
within the industry. And so that's our mission between now and then. 100 wells. I mean, it's pretty momentous, Andy.
Shall we give a little insight into what it takes to build a well? We can talk about my involvement ever so briefly, because this is all about you. So I wanted to get involved with Last Night a DJ, myself and the people who I work closer with, the access scheme that we give. People only put a tenner a month in, but collectively we ourselves are building one of these wells for you. So do you want to let people know what it costs to build a well and exactly what it means?
Yes, so the actual cost to build a well is £2,400, and the size of the communities vary. So in Africa, I think the average is about 350 people, something like that. In India, it's tend to be over 1,000 people. And we work in quite a number of African countries. Shall I name some? Uganda, just started working in Sierra Leone, Malawi, South Sudan, Mozambique, Ghana, to name but a few.
Mm-hmm.
And
this, for these communities, these wells are providing fresh, clean, accessible, safely accessible drinking water for up to 10 years, right?
yeah, and it's beyond it. We say up to 10 years because we were always told that by the water partner to say up to 10 years. And last year, because I knew I was getting in touch with quite a lot of the old well builders, I organised like an update, a report, basically going back. So the water company went back over to all the communities where these wells have been built. So let's say over 90 communities, and to check in to see how the wells are going. And all of them came back as functioning. At times, something might have happened, but then they've repaired it and it's back there. So it's not like after 10 years it vanishes and it's gone. It's not. That's just put into the thing. So, but if you're using 10 years, I mean, the amount of difference that having a freshwater well is the game changer, really, because I guess when you're not party to what life is like in those villages where you've not got a well, you probably wouldn't understand it. I mean, your immediate thoughts is, well, yeah, drinking dirty water, you're probably going to get disease and you're going to stand a chance of dying easier. And whilst that is absolutely correct, there's so many other things that affect the community when you build a freshwater well. And just as an example, a lot of the times in the villages, it's the girls who are fetching the water. And sometimes they're fetching the water from like another village, like miles away. Could be like 3 miles away or something. So it takes quite a long time to get there, but they're carrying a 20-litre jerry can, which calculates up to 20 kilos. Mm-hmm. And when I've been there, it was the first time I was there at one of these villages, and I was near the well, and there was this young girl, and I think she was 13, really thin built girl. She's not like a big, strong looking, thick set girl. She's quite petite, and she put this container on her head and just carried on walking. And I was like, wow, she make it look as if it was light. I put it on my head. I mean, I was like that. I managed about 100 meters, and the next day my neck was, in a tangle. So it's either way, whether she's making it look easy, it can't be good for you carrying 20 kilos on your head a few times a day, walking miles. Yeah, it just can't be. As a young person, when your bones and everything are still growing, it was my thought. But I think more to the point is the fact that that girl is doing that all day, every day. She's not going to school because that's her job. She's doing that. And if she doesn't go to school, the consequences of that are quite massive. One of them being child expectancy. They average, the person who's not been to school apparently averages about 9 children. Wow. Which is a problem in these communities when they've not got so much funds and everything around it. That model's just not working. And yet, if they've been to school, it comes down to 3. So that has a massive effect on the village, plus education in itself completely changes the future of these young people. So I think that, all these other factors that come into how much of a profound difference having something as fundamental as fresh water can make to people in any one of these villages.
Mm-hmm. So that the particular campaign, "Have a Drink on Us," is what people can find and get involved with that. As I say, I myself, within my organisation, for just £10 a month, you can get involved, and we are helping build a well. If people wanted to come to you direct, other initiatives that they can take on. I know you have some climbing challenges in the not too distant future, a little closer to home, and then in 2025 you've got a big push. Do you want to shed some light on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a keen runner, cyclist. I like going trekking, walking, mountaineering. I like doing that, and clearly within charities, as it all started for me, running a marathon or a half marathon became the key thing why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I know it's part of the modern day charity now to get people getting involved in challenges, which totally ticks my boxes because I love getting involved in them. But I know the difference it can make to people's lives within themselves, let alone the difference they're going to make because of their fundraising. And Kilimanjaro, we did 2018. I personally did it twice. It was the time when we did it with Nightmares on Wax. Record-breaking world's highest DJ set. Crazy journey, which is coming out on a documentary.
Okay.
Probably in a couple of months. Yeah, all the footage is getting made into a documentary at the moment. It's a good one. It's very good. But we've just teamed up with some good friends of mine who run a sort of adventure travel agency, the Tribe Experience. And they wanted to go to Kilimanjaro. We've already been. We've not been for 5 years. It was like, let's team up. Let's do it again. So February the 1st to February the 10th is Kilimanjaro, the world's highest freestanding mountain in Africa. It's an incredible journey. And it's
attainable by many. It's not as very challenging.
It's not technical.
It's not an Everest.
You're not going up Everest. You're not hanging on ropes, and it's a challenge. But yeah, it's not as life-threatening, or you've got to be skilled mountaineer. It's not that kind of thing. But in terms of the effect that it has on you as a personal life-changing mission to do, it's phenomenal. So that's a great one. We from the last one, we built a special needs children's home on the ground there below Kilimanjaro for 50 special needs children, which to this day is still absolutely functioning, and all those children are in there. It's an incredible place. So we're going to be fundraising for that again, plus a street boys home that's part of the same charity that we support over there. So we're supporting something locally, basically. Then we've got Ibiza cycle challenges, beginning of May, 2nd, 3rd and 4th, 260 kilometers around Ibiza, 3-day event. Been doing that about 7 years. Great way to see Ibiza. Half marathon that you're taking part in as well, Andy, aren't you? The Ibiza, well, it's the Ibiza marathon stroke half marathon, but I think we're all doing the half marathon. And that's another great opportunity to do something over here. But I mean, one thing that we're really pushing out on now is for people to take their own initiative as well, to get involved in whatever challenge it may be. They may be running a marathon in their own city, Bristol Marathon, Berlin Marathon. They might be going on a walk. They might be doing the Three Peaks in the UK. They might be doing a swim, whatever it is. But we just urge people to do a challenge. And if they could do it for Last Night a DJ as part of this community to inspire more of us to do that, all the better.
Yeah.
All the better.
Wonderful.
We've also got a trip to the Alps. I'll just say that one because I nearly forgot. June the 19th to the 23rd. It's called the Three Peaks Challenge because it's got 3 peaks in 3 countries: Italy, Switzerland, and France. So that's going to be an exciting trek, let's say, as well.
Non-stop. On top of all of that as well, you have the ability for organizations, club nights, festivals to get in touch with you, and also, as you say, add a little bit of take a little bit and donate some of the ticket profits towards yourselves, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've worked with people at Secret Garden, We Are Festival, people like that in the UK, and done quite a lot of work. And just recently we've got another breakthrough because there's a bit of technology's caught up with us, and there's a contactless payment gadget, which means, so almost like a contactless charity pot. So if you were working with a festival and they were going to implement some fundraising on their guest list, which is a good place to start because the guests are getting in for free. So they're saving the, whatever it is, £150 for the festival or whatever. With this gadget, all they've got to do as they're coming in through the guest list is tap the gadget, and that goes straight to a Just Giving fundraising page, which the promoter can see the report from, so they can see exactly how much somebody's donated. There's no cash involved, so it's really clean, very transparent, and it's a great new way of collecting funds within an event without having £5 notes and £10 notes floating about and things like that.
I get okay. Well, I feel we've only really scratched the surface of the possibilities of what you can offer and what you do actually offer. You have a great organisation and a lot of people that I know you're very grateful to for helping you. And as I mentioned at the top of this, World Water Day is on the 22nd of March, and I'm going to be doing a Set for Love in association with Castrooms. Do you want to tell us about how that's gone in the past and how that came about, the working with Castrooms?
Yeah, working with Matali, the founder of that. She's actually a trustee of a charity we've supported in Leeds called MAPS. It's like a youth charity with young people excluded from school, and they're teaching them the creative arts, including music production, things like that. So we've supported that in the past, and I met Matali through that. And then last year, we connected with Matali at the International Music Summit. And she'd got this new platform that she'd been developing. It all sounded exciting. And it seemed to make sense with our Set for Love project, which we'd done in the past online, and lots of people doing DJ sets across multiple platforms way back in the pandemic era. And this was a great solution for almost like a pay-per-view, but a donate-per-view kind of thing, but where you come into this platform like a Zoom scenario, but you all feel a bit more connected to the DJ and the others in the community at the party. So it's sort of like bringing the party indoors.
It is very difficult. It is very difficult to explain it until you're actually immersed in the experience, right? So we definitely recommend people to get involved.
And and the way that Matali explained that to us was, it's never been done before. I mean, they did have Zoom parties and things like that in the pandemic and things, but in the way that their model does it, it's not been done before, and so it's really pioneering. I'm always a supporter of somebody who's pioneering something, and it really fits. So we'd got one of our ambassadors, Amber D, female DJ, and who I've been to Africa with. She's done some incredible things. She'd done a 90-hour DJ set, stayed awake for 90 hours whilst broadcasting on Twitch. I'll back that up by saying on just sort of like fruit juices and meditation. She wasn't taking chemicals to stay awake for 4 days, and raised, I think it was £7,000, something like that. So Amber had already got her online community who are used to going and watching her perform online. And we suggested to Matali that Castrooms and Amber could do the launch version of online Set for Love to just test the platform out and see if it works. And it all happened. I think it was back in November time, possibly. It was a great success. I think maybe £600, something like that, was raised. And I went in the chat room, people chatting, usual sort of thing. It was good. It was a good online test. So both organisations enjoyed the experience and said, look, we should do this more often. It clearly worked.
There's a lot of passion on both sides of the organisations, and me being involved with it next week. I'm looking forward to it. I've sent the word out today, so I'm going to be doing a 3-hour set, playing vinyl only, and just having a little bit of fun, and just as you bringing the fun back to the online sessions, because as you say, during the pandemic, everybody was fully invested in that, and then the kind of interest waned a little bit. But as yourself, I definitely know that Castrooms is definitely going to be paving the way with some innovative features.
Yeah, and just having seen Amber do it and do not only Castrooms but her work on Twitch, she plays her audience in a really positive way, in a really authentic way, but shares why she's doing it and the cause that she's supporting, and I'll say little snippets of information and keep reminding her audience without being ridiculously repetitive, but just nicely. She does it in a nice way that for sure encourages those that are watching and reminds them, I need to donate. I'll put some in the pot now.
What it's there for. Well, that's what what we wanted to do today, was to make more awareness of what it is that you're doing, and throw forward to the World War today. Make sure that people are fully aware on how they can get involved and why they should get involved. As I say, I did kind of cut you off in the middle of the journey telling us about the timeline for Last Night a DJ, because you're so passionate about it. I think we would have been here 4 hours to get the full load.
That's why I said to you, there's a lot that's gone on in the 14 years since we set up. I mean, if I went through the timeline, there's a lot of big things. Making history at the Houses of Parliament is a big one. 2013, and getting the go-ahead from the government to put on the first party in the Houses of Parliament. That was quirky, on the 25th anniversary of Acid House. Having been there the first time round when they were banning repetitive beats and taking a Function 1 sound system in on the anniversary and blasting it through the Houses of Parliament.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll have that one. 1-0. Felt like a good goal.
Musical revolutionary.
Yeah. Well, as an Acid House missionary, and quite a number on the team were equally felt like that. We were the Acid House Trojan horse, and it works really well, whilst supporting young people and giving them a DJ opportunity to play with Fatboy Slim and Carl Cox a few years later. So, those stories alone, you could be talking for an hour in the intricacies and who got involved and the support from the industry, where certain examples of people like Norman, Fatboy, Carl have really given a lot for Last Night a DJ, and that's what I'm saying. You don't need lots of people to make a difference, but if the ones that shine out, you can see the difference that they make, not only for themselves, but to inspire others to come on board. And we're always open for as many of those people to come on board, really,
Well,
with a mission to inspire.
I'm honoured to be involved, and it's a pleasure talking to you. You are an absolutely incredible ambassador for what you've set up, and well, maybe ambassadors isn't the right word. You know, you're the shining man leading the charge. So, and long may it continue. Is there anything you feel that we should have spoken about that I may have made you skip over?
I think we might not have mentioned, because it's been quite me orientated, is behind all this, to make the vision actually happen, there's a team.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we've got James in the team, who's been with Last Night a DJ from the early days. I think maybe 2011, 2012, came on board as a volunteer. He's now part of the Brighton Music Conference as well. And James has been a great asset and as part of the team. You've got Ellie, who you know is doing our socials and everything. And Ellie's she's been around us for quite a few years, but working with us for the last couple of years. So that's been a great addition. And you've got VJ also, who's out there making connections. And then God knows how many other volunteers who've floated in and floated out or are still around us. The collective effort of all those people who contribute. Andrea, who's just taken on board running with our challenges as well. But yeah, all these people collectively have made a difference and made it possible for us to still be here now doing what we do. Mm-hmm. to create this platform and give the audience out there the facility to get involved and start changing and saving lives. Amazing. So big up the team Last Night a DJ.
Well, I don't think any of the team would hold it against you if you hadn't have mentioned them, because it's very apparent that you are very passionate about what you're doing and you feel the energy of them behind you, pushing you forward. And I don't think at any point have you been stood there blowing your own trumpet. So fair play to you, my friend. Fair play to you.
Oh, good, Andy. And yeah, and massive thanks to you for, you know, taking the initiative to get involved, and not only you get involved, but involving your whole community in donating towards a well that's going to take that 12 months to complete the fundraising. But, you know, like anything, the 12 months going to come round and you're going to be able to be that proud owner along collectively with your community and share those images and everything with them.
That's it. That's what it's all about. And hopefully every time I share it, the more I mention it, at the end of every stream, there's a list of the names of people who are involved in Access and how easy it is to get involved. Now, let's not make such a flippant claim. So, to some people, £10 a month is difficult, right? We need to make sure that we point that out. But to others, it's nothing. And that's what those are the people that we're trying to reach.
Yeah, that's it. It's once again, I think the message is, you know, don't feel like you can't give enough. So, I can't give enough, so I won't get involved. It's about as many people getting involved as possible, and whether they're giving a very, very small amount, it's the fact that you're involved has more of a use, because because you're involved, you might inspire somebody else who has got 10 or 20 or £50 a month.
Yeah,
you might be giving £1.
That's it.
But just the fact, you know, you're involved and you've got it in your world and you're part of this community, it starts to attract more people to come the way, I guess. Indeed.
Okay, well, Jonny, as I say, we would be here all afternoon, but I think you've done a great job of highlighting Last Night a DJ. So thank you, my friend, and thank you for allowing me to be involved. And somehow we will make unjumble what's been going on online, and people will have got to the end of this interview. So thank you very much.
Brilliant, Andy. And I look forward to running the Ibiza Half Marathon with you on April the 13th.
Indeed. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, my friend.
Yeah. No, great.
I am actually going to press a button here that will unceremoniously boot you off of Zoom, because I'm just going to do a quick recap, and then I'll message you when I'm done.
Brilliant. All right, Andy.
Take care, my friend. Bye. Right. And there goes Jonny. Okay, so we were talking during that interview about my set for love in conjunction with last night a DJ saved my life. I'm going to be live on Castrooms 7 p.m. UK time on Friday the 22nd of March. I'm going to be doing a 3-hour set. I'll be sharing some vinyl, doing some requests, giving some shout outs, and you can sign up now. The link is in the description of the video. And it's castrooms.com/set for love. There is details where you can jump in. The ticket cost is complimentary, and there is a suggested donation amount if you want to take part, or wait and see whether I deserve any of your donation. Thank you again to anybody that came back to check out this recording. My apologies for some brief technical issues midway through, and as I go to the end screen now, let me show you the people who are in our current access crew. These are the people signed up in February. It needs updating for March, and if you want to be involved helping us build a well in 2024, it's just £10 per month. A link in the description. Okay, thank you for being here, and thank you to all of the Access crew. And I'll end off by having a cheeky plug and saying, if you or your friends know anybody that needs a website or website hosting, then I am your man. I'll pay 50 quid to anyone. See you later.